Celtic Myths and Legends by T.W. Rolleston. Chapter 2, The Religion of the Celts. The Celts of today. In view of the undeniably mixed character of the populations called Celtic at the present day, it is often urged that this designation has no real relation to any ethnological fact. The Celts who fought with Chazar in Gaul and with the English in Ireland are, it is said, no more. They have perished on 1,000 battlefields, from Alesia to the Boyne, and an older racial stratum has come to the surface in their place. The true Celts, according to this view, are only to be found in the tall, ruddy Highlanders of Perthshire and northwest Scotland, and in a few families of the old ruling race still surviving in Ireland and in Wales. In all this, I think, it must be admitted that there is a large measure of truth. Yet it must not be forgotten that the descendants of the megalithic people at the present day are, on the physical side, deeply impregnated with Celtic blood, and on the spiritual, with Celtic traditions and ideals. Nor, again, in discussing these qualities of race character and its origin, must it ever be assumed that the character of a people can be analyzed as one analyzes a chemical component, fixing once for all its constituent parts and determining its future behavior and destiny. Race character, potent and enduring though it be, is not a dead thing, cast in an iron mold, and thereafter incapable of change and growth. It is part of the living forces of the world. It is plastic and vital. It has hidden potencies which a variety of causes, such as a fallacious cross with a different, but not too different stock, are in another sphere. The adoption of a new religious or social ideal may, at any time, unlock and bring into action. Now, the truth of the Celtic people extending beyond what could be called the Teutonic race and influxing into the rest of what people call Caucasian, those four races, and even influencing the Slavic. So you can say Celtic in terms of culture more than anything else, but certainly listing him. Now, the red hair thing is exaggerated. It really is. So is the blonde thing. But peoples where that trait is common are extant, are people whose hair bleaches to those colors. That can be something that we can say about those. But Darwin's 54 race theory hasn't been quite borne out. That was more cultural. And cultural references of race aren't quite what we should be pouring ourselves into. Well, okay, that's the wrong term, but you know what I mean. It doesn't quite work when you're referring to genomes and other physical ways of distinguishing peoples, mountains and countries and colors, not colors, countries, countries. That's dividing races along those lines usually don't make as much sense as people think. Okay, of one thing, I personally feel convicted that the problem of ethical, social, and intellectual development of the people constituting what is called the Celtic fringe in Europe ought to be worked for on Celtic lines by the maintenance of the Celtic tradition, Celtic literature, Celtic speech, the encouragement, in short, of all those Celtic affinities of which this mixed race is now the sole conscious inheritor and guardian. To these it will be responded. By these it can be deeply moved. nor has the harvest ever fulfilled those who, with the courage and faith, have driven their plough into this rich field. On the other hand, if this work is to be done with success, it must be done in no pedantic, narrow, intolerant spirit. There must be no clinging to the outward forms of the past simply because the Celtic spirit once found utterance in them. Let it be remembered that in the early Middle Ages, Celts from Ireland were the most notable explorers and the most notable pioneers of religion, science, and speculative thought in Europe. Well, we kind of think it's going to be more likely that it was the missionaries from the south, but as far as Christians went, yes. Those that still would have been identified by the terms of Celtic culture, you did definitely see that. For instance, Pelagius in the 5th century of the Common Era, Columba, Columbanus, and St. Gall in the 6th, Fridolin named Viator, the Traveller, and Ephrsa in the 7th, Virgilius Fiergol of Salzburg, who had the answer at Rome for teaching the sphericity of the earth in the 8th, Ecuil, the geographer, and Johannes Scotus de Regena, the master mind of this epoch in the 9th. Modern investigators have traced their footprints of light over half the so-called heathen continent, and the schools of Ireland were thronged with foreign pupils who could get their learning nowhere else. The Celtic spirit was then playing its true part in the world drama. A greater it has never played. The legacy of these men should be cherished, indeed, but not as a museum curiosity. Nothing could be more opposed to their free, bold, adventurous spirit than to let that legacy petrify in the hands of those who claim the heirship of their name and fame. And so, let's not be too conservative, and just like philosophy, let's look at the methods and the spirit of the Celtic people or whatever ancestral people you have, rather than just blindly following tradition.